Good morning, students. So, in the last class, we started with unit 2, correct? We read activity 1, activity 2, and half of activity 3 I had given in homework. Now, open your textbook. We are going to start with the other half of activity number 3. Come on, page number 13. Let's read the activity. The story says, all the animals that walked on land and all the birds and insects that flew in the sky began to quarrel. At first, they spoke softly. Then, slowly, they became angrier and louder. You know what three characters said? This was said in the first part of the story. But what did the other animals say? For example, the story says the tigers growled and the wolves howled. The birds gave loud cries and cackles. The insects buzzed as loudly as they could. So what do you think the tigers and wolves were saying with their growling and howling? What do you mean by growling? Tigers, when they were angry, they started to growl. They started making noise. But we have to interpret what did they mean by this growling. If there is a fighting between animals and birds, what would the tigers say? We have to think and write the dialogue of tigers and wolves, correct? Work with a partner in a group or as a class. Now, because we are at home, we will write the dialogue individually. What do we have to write? Imagine and create a new dialogue between 2 or 3 other characters. Use punctuation that you have noticed from the story to show who is speaking. Now, we know that animals and birds are fighting. So, you have to write a dialogue between 2 or 3 other characters. Okay, the character should include animals also and birds also. You can take one animal, one bird, total 2 characters, or one animal, 2 birds, 2 animals, 1 bird, whatever you want to do. Okay, but the dialogue should be between animals and birds using the punctuation marks. Now let's see what are the punctuation marks used in the story for dialogues. Yes. We studied in the last class that dialogues are written in quotation, inverted commas. This means commas open. Then we write the dialogue and then we close the inverted commas, close the quotation, correct? So this is how dialogues are written. So the first rule of dialogue writing is dialogues are written in quotations. The second rule of dialogue writing is that before the dialogue and before the quotation mark, there comes a comma. You can see before every dialogue, there's a comma. The elephant said. Now, before the dialogue of elephant, there is a comma over here. Correct? What said the lion? Then again, comma. Can you fight us? Okay, so before every dialogue, there's a comma. So first you put a comma, then quotation, open quotation, then write the dialogue. Okay. Now, the second rule of dialogue writing is that dialogue always follows a comma. There's a comma before every dialogue. Okay. Now, how do we end the dialogue comes in the third rule. So, for ending the dialogue, we either put a period, which means full stop, or a question mark, and then we close the dialogue quotation. For example, the dialogue is over here. We will put a period or a full stop or a question mark, whatever the dialogue needs, and then we will close the dialogue. We will not write the dialogue, close the quotation, and then put a full stop. This is wrong. We have to put the full stop with the dialogue inside the quotation. Clear? So these are the 3 rules of dialogue writing. Dialogues are always written in quotation. There's a comma before a dialogue starts. And full stop or question mark is always before the quotation ends. Now, when do we put a full stop and when do we put a question mark? When we are saying a statement, we put a full stop. And whenever we are asking a question, we put a question mark. Like the lion said, "Can you fight us?" So the lion was asking, "Can you fight us?" And the elephant said, "I can lift a whole tree and fight you all at once." So the elephant said a statement that I can do this. So we have a full stop after elephant's dialogue and a question mark after the lion's dialogue. Clear? Okay. Now I'm going to show you one template or one example of dialogue writing. Okay. Now everyone can see on the screen how to punctuate dialogue. So the dialogue is written in an inverted comma. And when we write Paul said over here before the dialogue, then we will put a comma over here before we start the dialogue. But we are saying the dialogue first and then we are saying who said it? Paul said. So after the dialogue, we put a comma and not a question mark. Hello, said Paul. Hi, replied Janet. So there's a comma over here. Here. Paul scratched his head and said, now because we are saying putting said before the dialogue, so we put a comma over here. Clear? And then we start the dialogue. Are you working on the dialogue assignment? Okay, now it's a question. Are you working on it? So we put a question mark and we close the dialogue. Clear? Now, she said is after the dialogue. So we will not put a comma over here. We'll just write yes. And it's an exclamation mark. Correct? So yes, she said as she clapped her hands with glee. Again a comma because we have a dialogue ahead. I love writing narratives. Clear how to punctuate a dialogue? Now similarly in the textbook you have to write a dialogue between animals and birds and insects to show that they are fighting. Clear? So you have to read the book once so that you get an idea. You have to read activity number 2 so that you get an idea about how the story is going. And then you have to write a dialogue between 2 or 3 animals, birds and insects. Clear? And with proper punctuation marks to show who is speaking which dialogue. Clear? Okay. So that is all for today. Thank you. Bye and have a nice day.